Maybe you wonder why manufacturers don't install large batteries in all their smartphones. Why are large batteries often found in the entry-level and mid-range smartphones? And why the average flagship smartphone tends to use lower battery capacity? In this podcast, we will discuss the selection of different battery capacities in each line of smartphones. Of course, there are several considerations starting from the marketing strategy, hardware specification, and etc. Hi, my name is Fatoni Asari from Tresnalogi, and on this channel we do tech reviews, news and tips and spread new insight through video and podcast. So if you like, consider subscribing. The first reason is marketing strategy applied by each manufacturer. They usually design smartphone specification according to user needs. Those who want high specification can choose the flagship series. Incredible CPU speed, can multitask with many applications, get large storage, and good camera quality. And people who use flagship smartphone will get a confident impression. For example, the iPhone Pro series, Samsung Galaxy series, Pixel Pro, Xiaomi Note, and other lens. So what is sold in this series is hardware speed, camera quality, display, and confident bonus, but not with a big battery. Manufacturers do not provide a large battery because the flagship smartphone does not require a large battery, and manufacturers tend to be more concerned with qualified hardware than the battery capacity. But unfortunately, not all consumers want to spend money to buy expensive smartphones. There are still more of them who prioritize function over prestige. So smartphone manufacturers make another mid-range and entry-level series. Manufacturers make mid-range smartphones with a good specification to carry out all their function. Even the difference is not far from the flagship series. Manufacturers install sufficient hardware for all requirements, smooth multitasking, large storage, smooth gaming and good camera, but still not as good as in the flagship series. Mid-range smartphone for people who are more concerned with everyday functions but don't miss out on critical features. Still able to multitask, the camera is still good, the display is also good, but to make it affordable, the hardware selection must be cut down. The mid-range smartphone tends to pair hardware with lower specification and some hardware uses in the previous generation. This was done, of course, to cut prices. However, the result is that the hardware requires more power than the latest generation of hardware, which is more power efficient. The price difference between flagship and mid-range smartphone is quite significant. The average price of mid-range smartphone is around $300 to $500. In comparison, the flagship above can even be more than $1,000, and there are more users of mid-range series smartphone than people use flagship smartphone. As with the concept of triangle, the lower, the bigger. Similarly on the smartphone, more affordable but having an attractive value will sell more. The last series is quite interesting if you look closely. That is the entry-level series. With a price range of $100 to $250, you can already get smartphone like a mid-range smartphone. But manufacturers are forced to use older generation hardware to cut the price more affordable, especially in the selection of hardware such as SoC, storage, RAM, display, camera, and materials. Or use a new generation, but the performance is not as fast as hardware in the mid-range or flagship. Unfortunately, the old generation of hardware tends to consume more power than the new generation. So, to save power, low-entry smartphones tend to be equipped with large battery to balance the duration with mid-range and flagship smartphone. On the other hand, equipped with a large battery in entry-level phone is used by manufacturers to provide added value. So, a cheap smartphone is not lacking in features. It can last a long time for basic daily activities such as social media, watching videos, browsing, and talking. In fact, many entry-level smartphones can last all day with just one charge. If you don't need qualified hardware, then the long battery life is the value. And in some countries, especially in developing countries, the presence of low-entry and mid-range smartphone has become an affordable smartphone solution and there are a lot of users. The second reason is the selection of the hardware itself. Hardware selection is include SoC or chipset, display, camera, network, and so on. Of course, the SoC installed on a flagship smartphone is more energy efficient, so it saves battery. Flagship smartphones tend to not require a large battery capacity. Instead, manufacturers install a smaller battery to have enough space to place the camera and other components, and also want to keep the smartphone thin even though it has high components. While on entry-level smartphones, manufacturers install hardware that has limited capabilities. For example, the display has a low resolution, below average camera quality, and the speed is much slower SoC. SoC capabilities on entry-level smartphones are only able to manage basic daily applications. For example, it can't be used for games or editing, and sometimes it can even be slow for multitasking application. Or indeed, the SoC is designed to embed it in entry-level smartphone. For example, have low clock speed or limited GPU capabilities but made with a new fabrication so that it saves power. Therefore, to increase attraction, manufacturers provide the value that everyone needs with a large battery capacity. Even entry-level smartphones are also designed to have large screen. For example, the average smartphone entry level has 6-inch display. However, the screen size is not accompanied by the resolution size. This means having a large screen but a small resolution. But having a large screen, besides adding to the attraction, also keeps the internal smartphone space so it can install a battery with a large capacity. Because back again according to the target consumer. The entry-level smartphone is intended for users who are concerned with function. They don't need a fancy smartphone or superior camera or a beautiful display. They only need a smartphone for daily use, for WhatsApp, talk, social media, and supporting applications. And they want the smartphone to work without worrying about the battery running out. And the number of entry-level smartphone users is huge. Maybe the population of Europe and America is relatively using the mid-range or above. However, many developing countries still rely on entry-level smartphone. Why? Because developing countries cannot equate their processing power with developed countries. In developing countries, there are still many users who can only afford an entry-level smartphone. So manufacturers are looking at this market and making phone with limited hardware but increasing with large battery capacity. And battery life is a very attractive selling point. That's a review of why entry-level smartphones tend to use large batteries. The main reason for powering hardware is that it tends to use older generation and consume more battery. The second is marketing strategy to target many entry-level users. Thanks for listening to the Technology Video Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to get updates on news and tips and share new insight through this video and podcast. I'm Fatani Asari. See you next time and thank you.